Hey, 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 hey. It's Wednesday, and if you are accustomed to coming to my show, you know that Wednesday is not my normal day. Pardon me, I'm going to put my own self on mute. Um, you know that Wednesday is not my normal day. For some reason, yesterday, I was just moving slower than ever, and I just needed to postpone the show for a day. I don't know what it was. I felt tired. I just felt like, you know what, I was not gonna give my best show. Aha! Hey, conceited motherfucker, how are you? I was not going to give my best show yesterday, and so I decided to do the show today. So welcome everyone to another episode of Fuck Your Feelings, the show. I'm gonna try to keep this show to an hour or less. I do have another show. If you do not know, I have another show that I do called Not Your Typical Girl Talk. That is also a radio show that syndicates on iHeartRadio. So your girl is busy. I've also changed the bottom of my signature if you're on YouTube. If you also do not know, I'm an author. I have 9 books on the market with a 6-book series called the Sienna series. So if you are interested, please go check out the Sienna series. It's my Black erotica series. I take you into a world of strip clubs and love and sex and that whole thing. So, anywho, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Shelby. Okay, so I put out some stuff. I did not put it out on YouTube, but I put it out on Instagram for people to ask me anything. And apparently, I tell all my business because nobody actually put any questions that they wanted to ask me. So I will answer some of the tonight's conversation if anybody on the fly decides they want to ask me a question. I am an open book for the next hour. You can ask me anything. I will answer it as honestly as I possibly can. If I do not want to answer, I will tell you politely to fuck yourself. Just joking about. If I don't want to answer it, I'll just say I don't want to answer it. But I am an open book. I do have some cards here from Tonight Conversation. I don't love the Tonight Conversation cards, if I'm honest, but I did go through and find a few that I don't mind answering. So as people are coming in, again, this is basically ask me anything, any question you want to know about me, any question you want to know about my perspective on anything. I have no problem sharing it. I'm also going to say I am looking to change the format of the show slightly in the upcoming months. As you know, I'm looking for male guest hosts who would like to come on the show to guest host with me, but I'm also looking to change it into a discussion between male and female. When I started the show, it was to bridge the gap that I found was happening within our community between Black men and Black women. I forgot to take this blanket that I have on my couch. Y'all didn't see that blanket. I just threw it on the ground. It's awful. I have this blanket, and let me move it to the other side of the room. I totally forgot to put it on the other side of the room. Anywho, back to what I was saying. I do want to start bridging the gap in the conversation between Black men and Black women. So in the upcoming months, I do want to start bringing men and women on the show to talk about their perspective on a topic, on a question, because I think it is important. I think it is important for us to know how each other thinks. I think that's the important part. I'm just going to put this comment up here, but I think it's important to really start listening to each other and think about how we think. And so I appreciate anybody if you'd like to be on the show and kind of start being a panelist from a male perspective or a female perspective. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank the person who put this comment on YouTube, Amna Selassie. Great show and host. I help men get their high school hairline back on my channel. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you for your comment. Philip said you could have left the blanket and no one would have batted an eye, but okay. Listen, I have OCD. So I'm gonna be honest, and I looked at the corner of my eye and I noticed it was there, and I like to present a certain thing, and the blanket just it wasn't doing it. It's the blanket that I use when I'm snuggled up on the couch and I'm watching Law and Order SVU or whatever. So I just it would have bothered me, and then when I was doing the clips, I'd have been like, why the heck did I not move the blankets? I seriously have OCD. So the questions are starting, and of course, Shelby, I appreciate you so much because you follow me, and you're always looking out. So the first question, and Shelby would like to know, is what is your perspective slash outlook at this current time on the dating scene in your area? So for those of you who don't know, I am from Jamaica, but I grew up in Toronto, Canada. And so I currently live in Toronto, Canada. I have been single for the last 9.5 months. I had to do that quickly. About a little bit over 9 months. And I probably got back on the dating scene in the last 2.5, 3 months. I will say this, and I can only speak from my perspective. You know what? I was having a conversation with my girlfriend just yesterday, and I said, because I have such stringent restrictions, it's harder for me to date than maybe some other women whose restrictions are not the same as my own. I'm used to dating or being married to a certain type of man, and so that's the type of men I'm accustomed to. And that pool of men is not a large pool of men. And so for me, the dating scene is a little bit different in my area. If I'm completely honest, I tend to find that I date a lot more outside of my country. You got to understand, I'm in a country of 30 million people. My ex-husband and two former fiancés were both American, and that's a country of 300 million people. So I find that I date more long distance on men on the other side of the border where there's just more options for me. So I can't really completely speak for the dating scene in my area because I don't tend to date a lot in my area. I have gone out on a few dates recently and they've been amazing, right? I go into everything with a positive attitude as much as I can. I go in to things to really get to know people and to have conversations. I don't tend to date men that I don't think I have initial attraction to, and that's just not physically. I like to have conversations with people over the phone before we ever go on a date because I want to know, is our thinking aligned? Are we aligned on certain topics? Is this somebody I can have fun with? So that's important. So I'd say, the dating scene is okay. I don't tend to date men in my city, and that's not necessarily a choice. I always say I date men that court me, and the men who tend to court me live on the other side of the border. I have no issues with long distance relationship. I will date you if you're in Amsterdam. Like none of that stuff bothers me. I guess I'm a passport. What is the opposite of a passport role for women? I don't know. My passport has stamps in it. So I think dating over all of those, Shelby, is what you make of it. I think a lot of us go into dating with all of these lofty expectations. And I go into dating to have fun and to get to know someone else and to determine if there should be another date. I don't go into dating thinking that this person's going to be my husband, but I do see, is this someone again that I can have fun with? Fun is important to me. I'm middle aged now. I'm 44 years old. I understand that I am closer to death than I am to birth. And so I am not going to go into any date with a bad attitude. I try to have the best attitude ever, whether this is going to be the one and only date we have or we're going to end up in a relationship. But I think I go into date with a mindset of fun. I go into to date with a mindset of trying to get somebody out of their shell if somebody's a little uptight. And I don't go into dates thinking that there's some interview process. So I would go with that. Next question. I'm waiting for it to pop up on the screen. I'm also watching myself on the TV. Philippe, hi Philippe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right and it's not Philip, but for my sense, I'm going to say Philippe. Philippe said, as a divorced woman, Would you remarry despite the dating scene being kind of trash? I cannot wait to get married again. I loved being married. I really did. I love cohabitation. I love sharing my life with another person. And I can tell you that that's something that I miss um, from my last relationship. So, Philippe, you're probably new to the show, but I wasn't married to my ex, but we were engaged and we lived together for over 2 years. I was married to someone else years ago. But the idea of sharing your life with someone is something that I love. Um, I think being somebody's support system and them being mine is so fundamentally important to me. I think as Black men and Black women, we are so much better together than we are apart. And I think dating also comes down to mindset. I always talk about how are we vetting the people that we are bringing into our life. We are very much accountable for people we give access to us. And as much as people might say that the dating scene is trash, I would say my dating pool is crystal clear. It's like a beautiful beach in Cuba, right? Like because you would I always say you attract what you are, and if you are attracting someone who is not aligned with what you think that you want in a person, you've got to really dig deep and figure out why am I attracting that type of person and why am I giving this person access to me. So to wrap up that question, no, I cannot wait to be married again. I love marriage. I love being my partner's biggest fan, biggest supporter, and I miss that aspect of a relationship. I don't love being single. I understand the purpose of being single, and I know that as I go through my single season, that it's important at this stage that I am vetting a little bit differently than I was before. But like marriage is absolutely my ultimate goal. Thank you, Philippe. So no, I like marriage. I love sharing life. And if I don't know, Philippe, if you've ever been married, but or if you are married, but for me, it was the waking up to someone. It was those long conversations in bed about anything and everything. It was the future plans that you make. It's about even enjoying each other while we're in silence. It's that knowing that you've got a supporter. And my marriage didn't end the best. It didn't it didn't end under the best circumstances, but it doesn't mean that my marriage was crap. It just mean that we ended up in a crappy situation, right? Like I think we sometimes will erase years of good times because of bad moments in relationships. And we have bad moments in relationships. It doesn't mean that the relationship as a whole was bad or that the person was bad. Sometimes we meet people and it's just not our time together. And so that's the mindset I go into my situations with. I don't feel as if my next should ever pay for the mistake of my ex. And I think that is so very much important for everybody. Do not go into something thinking that your next should pay for the mistake of your ex. So Philippe has another question. Since you mentioned vetting, do you think having your friends and family vet your potential partner will determine whether or not you'll proceed with the relationship? No. Um, I definitely would love for my partner and my friends to get along because we have a lot of couple stuff that we do when we're all in relationships. But I don't need my friends to co-sign or my family to co-sign my relationship. I am open to feedback from my friends or family because sometimes when you are in a space with someone, there are certain things that you may miss. And so, I'm very open to feedback. If there's something that I'm missing, you know what, I have no problems with them bringing something to my attention that I might want to ponder on as I evaluate the relationship. But we're adults. I don't need somebody to co-sign. You know what the thing is, and I think for me, Philippe, is because I ask a lot of questions and I want to know the essence of who you are as a man, because my job is to weave myself into the fabric of your life. Like I want to inhale my man. Like I get obsessed with my man. I weave myself into the fabric of his life. And the only way I can do that is I want to understand your childhood. I want to understand the amazing things that happened in your childhood, the things that impacted you the most in your childhood, the things in your life you wish that you had more of. One of the questions, as I'm dating and I ask with my ex is, what is their relationship with love? How did you see love when you were growing up? How do you define love? How did your family show you love? How did your family talk about love? How did your family talk about relationships? Right? Like, what is your viewpoint on relationships? How do you want to be loved at this age in your life? Is there aspects that you are missing from your mother and or your father that you haven't dealt with? Like, I'm going deep. I think we're not 25. This show was not made for people who are in their 20s. The show was made for people between the ages of 35 to 55. And it is important that we're asked, if we're going to share life with someone, you need to understand the life they had before you ever entered it, and the things that framed them, and the moments that made them who they are. You want to know about their disappointments, their joys, like you want to know about everything. And you need to determine whether or not that you can deal with who they are as that person right now, and if they were never to change. So I think that's really important, and I do a really good job. And I'm not always on the point because I'm single again, despite not wanting to be, but I don't always get it right. And so yes, I am definitely open to feedback from my family and friends, but I don't need them to co-sign my relationship. I just think we're too over that. I also happen to have a really great group of friends who are really supportive of me, and they're going to ride with me. Um, but they're also going to tell me when I'm wrong. So Riley says, how did you master the art of communication? Riley, I work on my communication every day. Like, I definitely would not say I've yet mastered it. But communication is something that I work on. And I think one of the biggest things I would say to people is, and it sounds simple, but think before you speak. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were basically like, I aspire to be like you. And I was like, why? And they said, you know what, even when you are in a difficult situation, the way you communicate effectively. And I always say, when I'm communicating with someone, I always think about what is the outcome that I want out of this conversation. I do the same thing when I'm at work. I had a really difficult conversation with my boss today, and he actually pissed me off. But I moved it back into a place where I was like, I'm here for a solution. I'm not here for the problem. We've discussed what the issue is. What is the solution that we're going to have moving forward? And so when I go into any conversation, especially one that I think might be difficult, and especially if it's difficult and it's someone that I care about, I think at the end of this, what is my ultimate outcome? What is my desired outcome? What do I desire out of this conversation? And then based on what I desire out of this conversation, then I frame the conversation in that way, right? So I also don't like to speak to people when I'm angry. I think we need to all stop doing that. On this show, I always talk about, so many of us have made permanent decisions on temporary feelings. And a lot of those temporary feelings will come out of when we are angry, even when we're sad, when we're depressed, we make these decisions that are not the best decisions, and some of them are very permanent. And so I think that is a lot of the things that I do. Again, I'm 44 years old, and I went to school. I have a degree in psychology. I've been in business development most of my life. I consult with business owners. I write books. I have these shows. Like, I'm constantly speaking to people, and I think you have to practice something, right? I think, again, I'm constantly on the phone, on Zoom, on whatever, in my job, constantly speaking to people, and wanting a desired outcome out of those conversations. And so I've kind of wired my brain to say, When I'm going into something, what is the desired outcome, and what is the best route to be successful at that desired outcome. And I think we can utilize that in our relationships. I think we have to be thoughtful when we go into situations with people. You know what? I always find it interesting when people say that they love each other, but they say the most vile things to each other. That's always been fascinating to me. Is, I love you, but I'm going to say things to you that I shouldn't even say to a stranger, like, or someone that I despise. So, I think just be mindful and be thoughtful and think about what the desired outcome that you want out of the conversation. And thank you, Riley. I saw your comment. I appreciate it. Young Handsome 34, hi. I've never seen you before. Thank you for joining. He says, as a foundational Black American man, I can honestly say we love, cherish, respect, and adore you. Much love, Queen. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment. There is Facebook can, I mean, not Facebook, YouTube can be a mean place. YouTube can be a very mean place at times. I try not to feed into the bad. I definitely try to feed into the good of it. And so I appreciate every comment that you make, and I really appreciate that comment from you. Waiting for the next question. And thank you, gentlemen and ladies, if you're online, for joining me. I really appreciate that. How do you feel about dating a man with a child or children, and would you ever adopt? Okay, so I'm just gonna say you've come to watch a show called Fuck Your Feelings. So just that's a disclaimer. I'm gonna start backwards. No, I would not adopt. I am the mother of a 22-year-old. I had my daughter when I was 21. And I chose to have one child because I only had the emotional capacity to raise one child. I ended up being in a single income household. I don't like to refer to myself as a single mother because her father is very much active in her life, and he has been since the day we had her. And so I was never a single mother. I always had the support of her father for everything, and we didn't always get along. But the one thing I always said is, she was the greatest thing we did together, and it was important that we grew up before she ever did. So she was never in a place where she felt any animosity between her parents. And to this day, we do things together with our daughter, including going to her birthday dinner. She graduated from university recently. Like, that's important. So I will start with there. Would I ever adopt? No. Dating men with children, I'm at a space in life that I have no problems dating men with children. I just can't date men with younger children or men who have children by multiple women. That's a deal breaker for me. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for the life that I've built for myself. As a woman who spent many years investing into her child, my daughter graduated from university on the Dean's List. She has competed on Canada's Got Talent, which is clearly the equivalent of America's Got Talent. Her team placed third place. Like, I have my daughter went to an art school. She's she has accolades to thing, and I invested a lot into her over the years. And so for me, I'm at the point in my life where I am living my life. I am in the passenger seat of hers and in the driver's seat of my own. And so dating men with younger children is difficult for me, and dating men with multiple children's mom, because I question his decision-making ability, because often that creates drama, and I am about peace. Peace is really important to me. I bring peace. I always say the three things I can promise a man is respect, peace, and no matter what, I'm going to leave him better than I found him. Because I believe that you're supposed to breathe life into someone, not take from them. And so I try to avoid situations that could be potentially tumultuous. And I think multiple children's moms That's just not my area of specialty. It's just not something that I can do. So hopefully that answers your questions. Love the kids. The kids are great when they're not mine, and I don't have to deal with them. Conceited motherfucker. There's a difference between single mom and a woman with kids. Absolutely. And I think as women, we need to stop referring to ourselves as single mom if we actually just live in single income houses. To me, single is solitary. It means alone. That means that there is no help. For a woman whose father, the father of her child is very active, I've always had an issue calling it you're a single mom, or mothers who celebrate Father's Day and say that they're the mother and the father. It's just the weirdest, very, very weird thing to me. And so I think there's a line, and there's a distinction, and it doesn't matter whether you get along with the father or not, ladies. If this man is in your child's life, you're not a single mom, because real single moms are doing this alone without help, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, for their child. And I am blessed and lucky to say I have never done this alone, and my daughter's 22, and her dad is still very much there right beside me to support her in anything that happens. So I'm so blessed um, for that. It is definitely a blessing. Thank you, everyone. Before that, final question before I sign off: your thoughts on polyamory? Okay. So what are my thoughts on polyamory? That is a great question. So I almost feel like you've watched some of my content before. Hi, Toronto Mermaid. Thank you. She said, I love the way you phrased that, sis, and I appreciate you. What is my thoughts on polyamory? I'm going to start with, I think you create the relationship structure that works for you, without worrying about what other people think about your relationship structure. I think whoever the two main people in the relationship with are, whoever the main two people in the foundational relationship is, whatever works for them is what works for them. And it really doesn't matter what anybody on the outside think if it's working for the people in the relationship. I think that's it. I am going to say I'm one of those people who thinks monogamy is unnatural. I do think, do I condone cheating? No, but I am always open to a conversation with my partner about what a non-traditional relationship would look like. So I think even just being open to the conversation, how do they see our life together? Does that include another person? For how long? Is this another person who's permanently in the relationship? Is it just that we're bringing people in and out of the relationship with no attachment? Like, what is the relationship structure that would work for us? It is not my place to judge somebody else's relationship structure, as it isn't their place to judge my relationship structure. At the end of the day, the person who you lay your head with at night and wake up to in the morning, it should be their opinion that truly matters. So hopefully that answers your question, Philippe. I do have a question here. Oh, Toronto Mermaid is bringing it. This is a good question. Toronto Mermaid. So this is on Instagram. For those of you on YouTube, I'm also simulcasting on Instagram. So Toronto Mermaid is asking, are you comfortable being with a man who is bisexual? This is a question I've actually thought long and hard about. So I'm going to be forthcoming. I am a bisexual woman, and I'm not going to say I identify as a bisexual woman. I am a bisexual woman. I know that I've liked the same sex since I was a very young child. I have dated women. I've been in relationships with women. Um, and so, again, I am a bisexual woman. Um, I'm gonna have a hypocritical response. To me, once a man has crossed that line, he's no longer bisexual, he's gay. That's the difficulty for me. And I know this is a double standard, and I know I'm being hypocritical, and I'm gonna own my hypocrisy in this answer. I think two women being together, um, because there's no penetration from one to the next, is very different than two men being together in that way. It's very um it's very difficult. It's a very difficult one for me. And I will own my hypocrisy in this answer, but that one is tough. Now, full disclosure. I told you guys, like, I have a show called Fuck Your Feelings. So full disclosure though, I watch gay porn. Full disclosure. I watch gay porn. I am aroused by gay porn, but I do not want a man who would perform in gay porn. So let's just let's just say that this is you just learned a lot about me. I remember when I told my ex that, he was like, "What the f?" But I do watch it. I do consume it. I do enjoy it. I just don't want a man who would be a performer in gay porn. I'm just saying. Next question on YouTube is, how easy is it for you to write books? Are you going to write them for the rest of your life? Oh my God, I love that question. I was just having a conversation with my editor and my sponsor, Sorrel & Sage. Joanna is her name. Her company's name is Sorrel & Sage, about this. Writing books is a journey. For those of you who are new to the show, I have 9 books on the market. I have a 6-part series called the Sienna series, which I have noted up there. And I have another book called No Handouts for Black Girls, which is also, actually, I have it here. So No Handouts for Black Girls. I also, in addition to this book, there is a 31-day affirmation book that I wrote for young girls to instill confidence in young Black girls. That's the 8. And then the Sienna series, I also have that in a full book, and that's the 9th book that's on the market. It is a process to write a book. You have to dig really, really deep when you're deciding that you want to write a book. It does require you to go deep, especially when you're giving of yourself in that book. And I would love to write books for the rest of my life. I know that I have another 7 in me. I am going to write a book with the same name as the show. And that's going to be released actually in November 19th. I chose the date. Yesterday, it will be on my 45th birthday. I will be releasing my 10th book. And then I plan to write another 6-part Black erotica series. I just love writing. I love escaping. I love the power of the written word. I love where my mind can go when I'm writing a book. And so if as long as my faculties stay together, Shelby, I will write books for as long as I possibly can. I watch it as well. I have found my people. Toronto Mermaid, we love a multifaceted Black being. Congrats on your 10th book. Thank you. I haven't written it, guys. It's not out yet, girl. Congratulate me when the 10th book is published this November 2024. Thank me then, and you guys better all pick up my 10th book. I'm just saying, when I buy. So Young Handsome says, wait, what? You'll watch 2 men in gay but don't want to see it in real life? Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Young Handsome 34. I didn't say I don't want to see it in real life. I just said I don't want my man being the one who is part of the couple that I'm watching. That's the key to it. Now, when I am with my man, anything goes. I am not for every man, but I will be everything for my man. Ladies, remember that, okay? You don't have to be for every man, but you should be everything for your man. And so I am open to a number of things with my man, but I will tell you the one thing that is definitely off for me is I just could not see my man being a bottom for another man. I don't even want him to be the top. For those of you who don't understand that type of relations, the man who is receiving is the bottom and the man who gives is the top, right? And I just don't want my man to be either. I'm sorry. I will watch it. I will watch it on Pornhub and PornMD and Triple X videos and RedTube and Black Channel, whatever it is that it takes me to. I will even go to a sex club and I will watch it there. I just don't want my man putting up his hand talking about he wants to participate. No, nope, 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 nope. I can't lie. I can't lie. It is not. It's not for me. I cannot do it. I can be everything for my man, but at the point where my man wants that, he's no longer my man. Sorry, he's just not mine. Conceited Motherfucker says, I've heard openly women say that they don't want to deal with two dudes because men are messier than men are messier than women. Listen, I don't even know. Here's the thing. I wouldn't even have a threesome with two men. Like I would never even do that. Like if I'm doing that, it's with another woman and my man, right? I will bring another woman into my bedroom before I even ever think about the idea of having a threesome with two men, because at that point it's not a threesome, right? Like a threesome is when all three parties are participating in the act, right? Me being with two men is me getting rammed by two men. Let's call it what it is, right? The only time it becomes a threesome is if the two men are doing their thing, and I just said I don't want to see that. So no, thank you. I want no, just parts of that. It's weird. it's again, the moment he wants that, he's just no longer my man. I've lost him, for the streets. He's gone. Young Handsome 34 says, at least you're honest, so I respect you. I'm always going to keep it real. I'm always going to be honest. It's a flaw. It's a blessing and a curse, I guess, with my honesty, because I'm just going to keep it real all the time. It's not the same, guys. Like two women together, sexy, alluring, beautiful. And again, I watch it. I watch it regularly. I am not in a relationship, and that is my go-to, at nights when I am missing the feel of a man. I go to PornMD and I go to the gay section and I look up the gay porn and I do what I need to do and I go to bed. But Lord have his mercy, it's not gonna be my man. Because the motherfuckers say, think about the messiest person you know. I bet it is a guy. Absolutely. Absolutely. I wonder what that would even be like. Going back to Philippe's question about polyamory, which is, there's polyamory, which is polygamy and polyandry. That's the concept of it. And I could not imagine being the only woman with two men, because at some point does one of the men have to be the submissive to the other man? Right? I believe as the woman, I'm submissive to my man. So if there's another man, because they can't both be alpha males. So one of the men has to be more submissive to the other man. And that whole dynamic is just weird. That whole thing is just like, it's just a weird concept. Shelby, would you enter a marriage with a man and additional woman? Absolutely. So that is a good question. So again, the question is, would you enter a marriage with a man and an additional woman? Shelby's calling it a close triad. Absolutely. That is actually my ideal situation. And that is something that we were looking at in my last relationship. It really was. We were kind of interviewing women at the time. I'm very particular about the type of woman that I like. Intelligence is really important to me. We just talked about the fact that I'm, on my 10th book. So intelligence, I want someone that I can converse with on all levels, who knows a little bit about a lot. And so that when we're in certain spaces, we can move and be able to network. Physical attractiveness, of course, is important. I will not date a bigger woman. It's just not for me. It's not my thing, whatever. But I would definitely open. My ideal situation would be to live with my husband, and we have a wife. So it isn't my wife, it is our wife. That would be my most ideal situation. Is it something that I'm going to get in life? I don't know. As much as people think that all men are open to this, it's not. A lot of men are not. There are a lot of men who don't accept my bisexuality. There are a lot of men who are not open to this concept. And so I know that for me, it's the special man that's open to that. And this type of relationship also takes a level of maturity that maybe a lot of us don't have, even with age. There's a level of maturity, a level of respect, a level of loyalty, believe it or not, even when there's three people in a relationship, but that not everybody is open to. And again, three is better than two, and two is better than one. That's kind of my idea. What is my toxic trait? That is a damn good question, Riley. You know what my toxic trait is? I can love you immensely, but when I'm done with you, I can cut you off and act like I never knew you. Like, at all. I can love you with every fiber of my soul, but when I am done with you, I can be done with you, and it's like we never met. I always say the only man I am obligated to have any communication with is my daughter's father. I say this to him all the time. You're actually the only one who has any evidence in this world that we've ever slept together. We have a whole child. So you're the only, my daughter's father is the only man that, and this is the why men sometimes don't want to date women with children, right? Like my daughter's father, even after 22 years, is the only man who has claims to me, and the only man that I actually have to communicate with, because he's the father of my child. Any other man, if I'm at a point where I just don't want to mess with you anymore, I can pretend that you literally do not exist. And so that is my most toxic trait. That is such a good question. Such a good. I've never thought about it, but I know that's one of, like, my girls always say that makes me savage. Let me actually put that up back. You know what? My girls will actually say that makes me a savage, but I don't quite like it. It's not a trait that I like. I don't like going from, like, I can love you so much, and then my mind changes and I'm like, you're dead to me. Like, it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest trait, but I think it's a survival mechanism, right? Like, I think it just says to our brain, that person's got to go. I'm not going to be mean to you. I'm not going to talk disrespectful about you. I'm just like, that part of my life is over. I'm done with you. Move on. So that's a good one. Any more questions? Again, I'm happy to answer questions. Shelby, I have the tonight conversation cards. I know you don't like them. I don't necessarily love them either, but I did find some questions in these tonight's conversation cards. If nobody has any further questions, and I can answer a couple before I jump off and go. Again, if you do not know, I have another show called Not Your Typical Girl Talk. We also go live on Instagram and on YouTube. So please go over to that channel, Not Your Typical Girl Talk, and follow us. It's me and two of my girlfriends, and we basically find ridiculous stories on the internet, as we call it, because the internet is where useful information resides, and the internet is where the foolishness is. And we find it, and we try to make sense of the foolishness, what we find on the internet. So if there are no more questions, I'm actually going to go ahead and answer some of these tonight's conversation cards. Before I continue, as I stated earlier, for those who joined me late, I am looking to change the concept of this show a little bit. I am looking for male guest hosts to be on the show, because I created this show, again, to change the conversation around Black relationships. and I cannot do that by myself. And as the months go on, I'm going to start having more panels where I want to get a male and a female perspective. My perspective is clearly not the only one, and I would love for men and women to have their perspective on the same question, because I do think men are from, what is it? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus, whatever it is. We have different perspectives, but can we use these differing perspectives and come together for a commonality? And the common goal is to change the conversation around Black relationships. So that is what I would say. Riley, you're so sweet. So Riley wants to know, what advice would you give to the youth? I'm assuming you're talking about relationship advice. What advice would I want to give to the youth? And consider my daughter as part of this. I think it is important to know who you are as a person, know who you are today, and know who you want to become before you try to mesh with someone else's life. Go into any relationship as a whole person. No one should get an unhealed version of you. Whatever it is that you're going through that you need to deal with it before you bring that into someone else's life. I think that's really important. People should get the best of you, especially the people that you say that you love. They should get the absolute best of you. And often we're bringing the worst parts of ourselves into a relationship and expecting people to love that. And that's unfair to someone else. And so, really, really know who you are as a person. What is your plan for your life? What is your plan for your future? Who do you want to be? Who are you now? Have you dealt with any of the issues in your life that it could have a negative impact, meshing yourself with someone else's? Learn the concept of accountability. Accountability is so important. A lot of where we are right now is because of a lack of accountability. We've stopped taking accountability for our actions. A lot of us, men and women, young and old, it is easier to blame someone else as for why your life turned out the way it is than to actually look and say, I'm the reason my life is the way it is. And those traits are horrible traits to try to bring to be in a relationship. So I hope I answered that question as best as I can, Riley, but this is the same advice that I would give to my daughter, and my daughter's 22. She is the youth. Had you thought about opening up the panel on YouTube? Yes. I am absolutely considering, motherfucker, thinking about opening up the panel on YouTube. I have to figure out how I can do it where I can simulcast on YouTube and on Instagram, and have those on Instagram see what's going on in YouTube. So it might be a camera positioning, it might be finding something outside of StreamYard, but I absolutely will have the panel on YouTube, and I can start sharing the link for guests to join. And maybe that's what I'll start doing, is I'm going to start sharing the link on YouTube. And so those of you who might be interested to come online with me to have a conversation, I believe in respectful discourse. This show is built on respectful discourse. Hey, Ryan. This show is built on respectful discourse. We may have different perspectives, but there doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. And like I said, the goal of this show has always been to change the conversation around Black relationships, because I believe that we are better together than apart. So consider motherfucker, I think you can only simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. They have an option to be able to do it on Instagram, but I had to jump through all of these hoops in order to do it, to be able to push StreamYard to YouTube. So I ended up just doing it differently. So I need to figure it out to find a way that I can push it to both. Because again, I would love for us to really start having this discourse. Riley asked, this is a great question, and this will be my last question before, if I even get to these relationship cards, because I do not like the tonight's conversation card. So Riley's question is, if you had a son, what type of teaching will you pass down to your son? I always wanted to be a boy mom. Let me just start there. Um, and so if I had a stepchild, I would really hope for a son. When I had a stepson, like I did everything with him. Um, Anywho, what teaching would I pass down to my son? I always said to, if I had a son, I think the biggest thing for me would be to bring him around men of value that I respected, and not just his father. I always feel like I don't know how to be a man. The greatest thing I could do if I had a son was bringing him around men I respect to guide him and show him how to walk the path of a Black man. I think that's the greatest gift I would be able to give him as a mother. I would have been able to provide my son love and affection and support, but I would have not ever been able to teach him how to be a man. And I think a mother's greatest gift for her son is to surround him by men who can usher him into the world as a successful Black man. And I think that's where a lot of us have failed. And even though I'm not a boy mom, I will put myself in the category because I am a woman and a Black woman. A lot of us have failed because we think that we can raise little boys and we cannot. And often these boys become men that those same women then complain about. And so I find it interesting where we are, where women are complaining about men being and acting a certain way, but they're the ones who raise those men to be and act that way. And so again, the best gift I would have ever been able to give my son is to ensure that I surrounded him at all times with men that I respected that would be able to usher him into the world as a successful Black man. I'm going to get to that question. I can still be a boy mom. So Ryan on Instagram says I can still be a boy mom. Absolutely not. My womb is closed for business. I'm good. We are good over here. I can be a boy mom if I am a stepmom of a boy, preferably one who plays basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan. So I can be a boy mom. Well, any sports will do. I also ran track. So I can be a boy stepmom, but no other child would funnel out of my body ever again. Okay, young handsome 34. Physically, what is your type of men? This is where I always get in trouble. So we're gonna see who's gonna keep watching after I say this. Physically, what has been type of my type of men? I like tall men. I've always liked tall men. My very first boyfriend when I was 16, 15, 16, he was 6'5". My daughter's father is 6'7". I had her when I was 21. My ex-husband is 6'5". And my last fiance, which was my most previous relationship, was 6'9". And so I physically like tall men, and I will say tall men are also attracted to me. If you need to know my height, I'm 5'5". I also like men who are physically in shape. I go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I work out very frequently. I drink water, meditate, and mind my business. I want a man I can work out with, go to the gym with, pray with, all of those things. Like I want that in my partner. So tall men, mostly athletic builds. Most of my exes have been athletes in some way, whether collegiate or professional. So I like an athletic man because again, I ran track for many years. I like to work out. So I'll say that. I like a man with broad shoulders. I really like that. I love a man, and I'm at this point in my life, I love a man with a beard. A beard is so important. Extra points if it's salt and pepper. I am not a woman. I am 44. I'm not a woman who's thinking that my man needs to look youthful all the time. I like a good, mature man. Like my ideal man is like 50 years old with like a salt and pepper beard with salt and pepper in his hair. Like he is just, ooh. So I like that. Hair or no hair, I do not care. That doesn't matter to me. But I would say definitely over 6 foot with a beard, preferably salt and pepper, physically fit, really enjoys physicality is important to him. I think you said physically, so I'm just gonna answer physically. Hopefully, again, I know I lose a lot of people when I say that because I know y'all say, "Oh, you women want men over 6 feet." Well, my track record, and I know I'm unmarried right now, so maybe my track record isn't the best. But starting with my with my first boyfriend at 16 to my most recent fiance, 95% of the men that I have dated have been 6'3" and over. Oh, thank you, young handsome 34. He said, I can't believe you're 44. Stop. I say to people, I drink water, meditate, and mind my business. This is what I do. I try not to have bad habits. I try to have a good mindset. All of it matters. And like I said, I'm in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I understand that my body is my temple, and so is my mind. And so I try to keep them both sharp. That's why I bought these books, and that's why I go to the gym, because I think that is super important, and we shouldn't forget that. So thank you. Some of these young girls, listen, I watched an episode of Kendra G the other day. Lord have his mercy. This girl on Kendra G said she was 27 years old and she looked older than me. I don't know what you young ladies are doing, but stop it. Like, it's just whatever it is, just stop it right now. Stop it. Like, I don't know if it's because they start drinking early. I don't know if it's because they're smoking. I don't know if they're not going to the gym. I don't know if they're putting crap in their bodies. But this young woman said she was 27 years old and she looked older than me. And I thought, this cannot be life. I will be honest, I did not have my first alcoholic beverage until I was 26. So the first time I drank alcohol ever, I was 26 years old. I was actually celebrating my 26th birthday. And that's the first time I had alcohol. And if you were to come to my house, you're not going to find alcohol. You actually have to bring it. I understand that that ages you. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke weed. I don't eat McDonald's and Chick-fil-A all the time and all that other crap that people be eating. Like, I understand that my body is my temple. And whatever my man signs up for in the beginning is what he should also get at the end of it. I do believe in that. So come for me, ladies, if you want. But when you sign this contract to be with me like this, barring me getting sick, I should look just like this at the end of it. Young Handsome 34 is in America. A lot of the Black women trash us light-skinned brothers, even on the Kendra G show. So what's your thoughts on that? Black is beautiful no matter the shade it comes in. I'm not going to go and say I want my man to be tall, dark, and handsome. If you look at my exes, if I were to line them up, they're all shades of black. I will date you as long as you're black. My father, oh God, I wish I had a picture. I do actually. I will show you my daddy. Hold on. Hold on. Let me show you my. So my daddy passed away about a year and a half ago. And so this is a picture of my daddy in his later years. My daddy was the cutest little light-skinned man. I wish I had the picture of him. Oh, let me actually find the picture that I have on Instagram of my daddy when he was younger. He was so, like, my dad was so handsome. I understand why my dad was, in Jamaica, they call it a gallus. So I'm Jamaican, and they call men that have lots of women a gallus. But my daddy was just adorable, and my daddy was light-skinned. So to say, so this was my daddy. This was my daddy when he was younger. Like, look how handsome. For those of you on Instagram, just look how handsome my daddy is. So for me to look at my daddy, so for me to say that I wouldn't date a light-skinned man would be crazy when the first love of my life, my daddy was light-skinned. It's like, can we just see did I have to take the picture? Let me just show you my daddy again. Like, look how handsome, just look how handsome this man is. Like, that was a handsome man. Look at my daddy. He was so handsome. So I would never, ever dare to fix my mouth and say that I would not date a light-skinned man. That would be denying my daddy. And my daddy was like my favorite person in the world. I'm just saying. I'm a daddy's girl, and if anybody were to ask me my three biggest flaws, one of them is I'm a daddy's girl and I'm super spoiled. But blame my dad, but you can't because he's dead. So you can't. Your dad looks like an amazing man. He was an amazing man. My daddy was like, my daddy walked on water. You can see how I like light up. My daddy walked on water until he didn't. He was the man who taught me what love is supposed to feel like. He was the man who taught me how to love and how to receive love. I always say he wasn't a perfect man. He was a very flawed man, but he was a great daddy. And I was so blessed to have him for as long as I did in my life. And I wish more women had fathers like I did, because he was my everything. And he still is, even though he's gone. I talk to my daddy all the time because I tell him that he's up there trying to find me a husband. So you are right, Shelby. I actually look just like my dad. Um, yeah, I look if when we're just kind of around, just in a circle, people know like, oh yeah, she's one of his. Because actually me and my sisters look quite a bit alike, even though my dad had like 7 girls, but that's another story for another day. So let me this is my final thing before I go and sign off to my next show. So Young Handsome 34 says, I can't believe no man has married this woman, yet she definitely wifey material and could be my wife any day. Oh, now I'm blushing. Well, technically I'm divorced. So some man did marry me. We just didn't make it to the end. But like I said, I look forward to being married again. I do look forward to being married again. I cannot wait to be married again. I recognize that I am not for everybody as a 44-year-old woman who comes with her own child and is not having anybody else's child, because my eggs are old, boy, and I don't believe in children with different men. So actually, going to that point, Young Handsome, before I sign off, I think one of the reasons I did not remarry for the longest time was I recognized that my stance on not having any more children was a big one. I came with someone else's child, and I was not willing to have my husband's child. And I always recognized that was a strike against me. I don't fundamentally believe in children with different men. And so I always let men know, like, I am coming with a child, and I cannot have your child because I just do not believe in it. I don't want my children to have different last names. Like, I just did not want it for myself. I knew that very, very young. And that was something that's holding me back. But at 44, I am ready. I cannot wait. I cannot wait again to do life with someone, and I look forward to it. So, and I think I'm going to be a lucky woman, whoever God blesses me with, because he's working up there with my daddy to get me that man. I'm just saying, do what you got to do, daddy. So that will be the last thing that I say. I want to thank everyone for joining me. Again, I'm going to make this announcement again. I am looking for male guest hosts because I think it is important to have the male perspective. When I started this show 2.5 years ago, I started it with my now former fiance, and we really wanted to change the conversation around Black relationships. We wanted to show what healthy and happy looked like. And even though we didn't make it to the finish line, I, wish him the best. And I'm so blessed to have had that man in my life because he taught me so much about myself and about life. And so I am looking for male guest hosts. If you're interested in being a guest host, please email me at fyftheshow@gmail.com. You can also DM me on Instagram. On YouTube, it's a little harder, so it's probably easier to email me. And I also will be starting a panel where I want to have discussion, respectful discourse is what I call it, between men and women, to really move this conversation forward. The narrative that we see on shows like Kendra G is not the narrative of Black women. Those are not the Black. I have to be honest. Most of those Black women, I don't know women like them, and I hate that that's what the world is seeing of us. And so I want to be able to create a different narrative between Black men and Black women. Toronto Memory said, thank you for your transparency and honesty. Have a great evening. So great talks. Thank you. So I really appreciate you. Email me, Young Handsome. Email me, really. fyftheshow@gmail.com. Here's the thing. I actually was in Louisville, Kentucky back in we got to talk. Email me, fyftheshow@gmail.com. I actually stayed in Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know how old you are. You probably know how old I am, but I was in Louisville, Kentucky from 2009 to 2010. This was the Easy era in Louisville, Kentucky. That's when you guys were having all the parties. So I actually was in Louisville, Kentucky for a year. So I am familiar with Louisville, Kentucky. I lived in old Louisville. I actually had an apartment and everything out there, but that's a story for another day. So my email is fyftheshow, THESHOW So fyftheshow@gmail.com. And I actually also enjoy LA. So I am a traveler. I've probably been to 25 of the 50 states. I have to make that list again in several cities. And I have been to 3 continents and like 9 countries. I got to get better with the countries. I'm really good with the states and provinces, but not so great with the countries. So part of my goal in this part of my life is to definitely travel more. That is on my bucket list. I want to try to hit up every single continent. And I think there is 155 or 195 countries in the world, somewhere between that. And I would love to get to most of them. So that is my goal. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you. I was the new city. Email, we will talk. I was in your city for it was like donkey years ago. I was donkey years ago, like many, many years ago, but I was definitely in Louisville back in the day. This is before they even built, I think it was the Yum Center it was called. They have the countdown there. I used to go to Wine Down Wednesdays. What the hell is the name of the club where Wine Down Wednesdays is? But I used to go to the spot and we used to have Wine Down Wednesdays. It was a whole thing. I was there actually when Michael Jackson just passed away and I went to Wine Down Wednesdays. It's a whole thing. We'll definitely have to chat. I've got to run, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please follow me on my other show, Not Your Typical Girl Talk, and I will see you next week. Again, if you're interested in being a guest host, hit me up. Thank you. I appreciate you. Much love. Bye. fyftheshow@gmail.com. fyftheshow@gmail.com. Bye.